everyone, so now we are up to the next step in your set of instructions. So this will be steps 5 and 6 of the jumper construction, which involves putting our sleeves onto the front piece of our jumper. So what you will need is you'll need both of the sleeves and your front piece of the jumper. Now, if you labelled the sides of the sleeves with an F or a B for front and back when you took the pattern off, this will come in handy. If not, there is only one way that the sleeve can fit onto the jumper. So what we're going to do is we are going to have the jumper with the good side facing up. So that's the nice smooth side is facing up and the fleecy side is facing down. We then need to make sure that the right side of our sleeve faces down onto the right side of our jumper. So the right sides are facing and both of the fleecy sides are on the edges there. So we need to line up the front onto the diagonal, and it will be diagonal to diagonal. So this one fits, and there is our one sleeve attaching onto the front part of the jumper. We then need to attach the other side. So the other side, we line it up and it fits there. Now these are all going to overlap, but that doesn't matter. All we need to worry about is being able to pin and sew along these diagonal lines. Once they have been sewn, you will then be able to flip them backwards and attach the back. Okay? Now, if you were to attach the other side of the wrong sleeve to the wrong side, it wouldn't fit. So as you can see, I've got heaps of excess up here, okay? So it doesn't fit, all right? So only one sleeve fits onto one side perfectly. Okay, so go ahead now. You need to find the appropriate sleeve for the appropriate side of the jumper. You need to pin it at 1.5 centimeters. So both of my right sides of the fabric are facing. The sleeve lines up perfectly with the front side of my jumper, and even the little notches line up perfectly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to pin, and I'm pinning with the sharp edge pointing in towards the center of the jumper to make it easier to remove when I am sewing. I'm now going to use the markings on the plate of my sewing machine to measure my distance to sew this sleeve onto the front part of my jumper. If you don't have markings like this, you are more than welcome to grab some fabric chalk and a ruler and mark out the straight line that you need to sew. Now that I've sewn both of my sleeves on, it's time to move to the overlocker and overlock over the edges. Now remember to just lift up the presser foot gently and line up the stitching with this side of the presser foot, and that way you will not cut off too much fabric. Now I'm going to show you how we attach the sleeves onto the back edges of our jumper. So this is the back piece of the jumper, and the good side is facing up, and this is the fleecy wrong side of the fabric. What we are going to do is we're going to come in with the jumper that we have sewn partially together. So this is our front and our sleeves. And we are going to place the front side of the jumper face down. That means both of the good sides are touching and we are left with the wrong side facing up. Now all of this is going to have to be bunched into the middle. It doesn't really matter about that at the moment. The only thing we want to do is line up this edge of the sleeve with this edge of the jumper here. So you will have to maneuver the rest of the fabric around. But as long as we have these edges lined up, that's all we need. We then need to use our pins and pin with the pointy end facing in towards the fabric all the way across so that it makes it easier for us to pull it out as we are sewing. You are going to sew the same as you did with the front, 1.5 centimeters all the way up on both sides, and then you are going to get onto the overlocker and you are going to overlock the edges to neaten them up. So the sleeves on the back side of the jumper have now been pinned in place. I'm going to move over to the sewing machine and then the overlocker, and our sleeves will be attached to the jumper. Hi everyone, now as you can see, both of my sleeves are attached to both the front and the back on each side. And when I hold the jumper up, it's actually starting to look like a jumper. Now this next step is step 10. So if you are making a hood and you are going to have a hoodie, you need to skip through because your instructions start at step 15. However, if you are doing the neckband, you are up to step 10 through to 14. Now, I'm having a neckband and I've done the first step already. I've got my neckband here, the ribbing, okay, and I have gone across and I've overlocked the top. Now, attaching the neckband to the jumper is quite fiddly. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to fold the band down in half. Now, we don't want the overlocking showing. We want that to be tucked inside. So we're going to fold it in half all the way around, and it is quite fiddly because it's stretchy. And this will actually now become the new width of the neckband, so it's a lot skinnier. Alright, so just hold it in place so that it doesn't come apart. Now, the next step, after your neckband has been folded in half, okay, we need to keep the raw edges together and we want the fold up the top. You need to make sure that your jumper is now the right way out. So the good sides are facing, I can see my pocket here, and I have the front and the back. The neckband is obviously going to attach to the neck of the jumper. The join that is in your ribbing from where you overlocked, that is going to line up at the back of your jumper. Now the way that you can tell which is the front and the back is either you may have a pocket, or the front is a lot longer and wider than the back. The back is only quite short and the front is a lot longer. Now we need to first position your jumper so it's easy to access the neck. We are going to pin in four positions first. So one at the front and one right at the back, and then both on the shoulders. And then after you have placed those 4 pins in, you will then go around and fill up the gaps with pins. So to attach the neckband, we need to make sure that the raw edge, so not the folded over edge, the raw edge is up the top of the jumper. So I'm going to stretch it over. I'm going to make sure that the join that I have here is going into the center of the back, and I'm going to line up the edge of the jumper with the raw edge here of the ribbing. Now, it might be quite tricky to get in place, but what we need to do is make sure that we are pinning and working around the fabric, because the neckband is going to be a lot smaller than the actual hole for the jumper, okay? But once you sew it in together, all right, it's going to work out. So I'm going to work on getting the back in line and pinning it in place. I'll show you closer what it looks like. Now, I know that this is nowhere near enough pins, but I wanted to show you how it is pinned in place. So the back is lined up on the inside there. These are our raw edges, okay? And I have pinned around. So that ribbing is facing downwards on the jumper. And once we sew all the way around the top, we will then flip it back this way, and all of this will be tucked in and hidden away. So you want to make sure that you are getting as many pins in place as possible all around the jumper to make sure that when you sew the neckband on, alright, that there are going to be no holes. Okay, so my neckband has now been pinned in place, and what I need to do now is I need to sew all the way around the top edge, so it's the raw edge of the ribbing. To do this, you need to make sure that you're using the arm of your sewing machine. So mine actually detaches here, Okay, and I'm going to thread on, so placing the bottom around the bottom and just maneuver it through and placing it through. Now it's quite a lot of fabric for your machine to sew, so you just need to make sure you take your time, okay? And you want to be about 1 centimetre in from the edge, because then we need to overlock around to make it neater. Okay, so just watch and start at the back where the seam is from you attaching the ribbing together with the overlocker. That was the first step. So start there so that it keeps it neater, and make sure as you're going along you're pulling out the pins and just checking that you are actually attaching the ribbing to the jumper so that there are no holes. Now once you've been around and you have stitched all around the ribbing, you need to turn it up just to check that there aren't any holes or any gaps. And see, I've got a hole here, there's a gap. So I will now need to go back over with the sewing machine and re-sew this so that I don't have any other holes. So just check before you move on to overlocking. So now I've been around and I've checked that there are no holes in the neckband. What I now need to do is move on to the overlocker to neaten up these edges along here. Now the overlocker doesn't have enough space for you to thread the neckline on like you did the sewing machine. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you are tucking all of the excess back and only sewing on the top. Take your time and stop so that you can adjust and move the fabric around so that you are not going to chop off or overlock any of the other sides of the fabric. Perfect, so I've now been around and overlocked the final part of the neckband. The neckband now is ready to be turned in the right way. And there you have it, the neckband of your jumper.